Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and 2021 has showed Black Panther issue number one again. Again. Not a big fan that Alex Ross is doing the main cover for this, even though I love Alex Ross's art, because it looks too much like the Ta-Nehisi Coates stuff that came before, and it's like, I thought we were going to try and differentiate things. It's still called Black Panther, it's still called Black Panther, that was still called Black Panther, it's all Black Panther, and there's no, Black Panther, King of Wakanda, T'Challa, Black Panther. There's never anything like that. It's always just Black Panther. Come on. How about you change it up a little bit since you're constantly going back to issue number ones? I mean, how many people have been on the Spider-Man title? It's still up there in the high 700s, right? You don't need to constantly freaking change and go back to issue number one. It's a stupid, cheap ploy that Marvel and DC continue to do, and DC taught Marvel how to do it. But nonetheless, you're a very good student, Marvel, and it's frustrating and it's too much. It's way too much for your average person to keep going back and which one is which. Anyway, let's talk about who wrote this comic book. We'll talk more about the comic itself. My initial take on the comic was this is skippable. I'm going to explain why. Okay. John Ridley is the writer, and Unlikable is the artist. I hope I did his name right. Federico Blee on colors, and VC's Joe Sabino doing the letters and the design. Again, Alex Ross did the main cover, a whole bunch of variant covers because that's what you do with an issue number one. And Jay Bowen on logo. Brian Stelfleeze did that Wakandan flag, and Black Panther is created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So we start off with the only real action that you're going to get in the damn comic. I mean, later on, there's two people we've never heard of before, but we really feel like we were supposed to. Like we felt like we were cheating, and it's funny that I say that considering that's what they were doing, but not really. But yeah, they were. But nuh-uh. This was a very confusing book. If the things that I just said are making you going, Professor, what the hell are you talking about? Try reading the comic book, and then you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. This was such a confusing comic book. We start off with the Avengers, specifically Captain America and Thor, and Doctor Strange shows up to handle a bunch of strange monster demon things that were trying to nibble on them. And have you ever seen Ultimatum 3? Have you ever read Ultimatum 3, the ending of that? Where they tell Magneto, you've got to. All this is happening because the poles, the magnetic poles of the Earth are reversed. So you've got to fix the one so you can and do it. And he's like, I'll try. I can't. I can't. He's sweating. He's like, I just can't. It's like, you've got to. So he goes, okay. It's done. It's like, wait a second, this was the thing that actually solved everything, and it was literally just like they could have done a little beep in the back or a little toot in the back with a little dust cloud and make it point down towards his ass, and that picture would have been the exact same thing, and you could have memed it on top of that. Like that was horrible, and that's what this fight was. Doctor Strange, I need you to do a portal. I can either do a portal or I can keep up the wall, but I can't do both. Well, you gotta, because a portal's a portal and you gotta do this. So how about you just, and he calls it a different name, open a rift. Oh, yeah, because a rift is different from a portal. In fact, wouldn't a portal be easier? Whatever. Honestly, I don't care. I really just don't care. You're telling him to do the same thing, but you're telling him in a different way. And then he does the thing that he just said he couldn't do. And it's like somehow you know better what Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme of the Earth universe, who, mind you, is supposed to be freaking dead in the comics right now. So great continuity, Marvel. Ding! Like issue 3 of The Death of Doctor Strange, where he died in issue 1, just came out today. Doctor Strange is supposed to be dead. Nobody could collaborate this? Where are the editors in this comic book? Let's give credit where credit's due. Will Moss, you funked up, bud. You funked up on this one. C.B. Cebulski, you should know better. You damn well done should have known better. This was horrible. You don't have Iron Man in this, or Captain Marvel, or, I mean, you could have gotten America. Like, you need plot overrules everything else, right? Instead of character development or continuity, none of that stuff matters. The plot is what matters the most, right? The thing that actually causes every single plot. Let me give you an example. There's plot-driven and story-driven stories. Plot-driven stories can be good, but the great stories, I'm not saying all character-driven stories are great, but all the stories that are great are character-driven. You kind of get what I'm saying there? You're not going to have a great plot-driven. It's never happened. It's never happened, and nobody's going to reinvent the wheel. You are not going to have a great plot-driven story. In fact, that's the thing that usually kills a franchise. Just go and take a look at Dune, for example. Oh, the planet is more important, and the ecology of the planet is more important than all of the characters. And that's where you lost most of your reader base. Go figure. I wonder if there's a correlation to that. Anyway, in this particular case, like I said, he could have just gotten America to do this, or Thor could have opened a goddamn rift. You didn't need Doctor Strange there. And even then, Doctor Strange didn't sound like Doctor Strange. Look, no character in the Marvel Universe is more guilty of leaving its comic book origins and turning to its movie MCU origins more than the Black Panther. And for an example of that, just look at Shuri. Shuri, who was already a badass character, who was about as tough as T'Challa himself. Then she dies, and she's brought back by Coates, and it's like, oh, well, now she has magic, ancestral magic, where she can turn into crows or turn into solid stone, which is stronger than regular stone. And she has, like, magical powers and things like that. And yeah. Okay. I guess. If there wasn't anything else to do with her, fine, I guess. But then Coates also says, well, now the movie came out, and she was smarter than even Tony Stark, so let's make her smarter than Tony Stark. And let's give her a new outfit that looks a little bit more like her MCU outfit. And the tape on the wrists like she's about to get into a freaking boxing match, which is just, come on. What's the point of that? If you're not going into a freaking Muay Thai fight, I don't want to see you out there. Like, I'm surprised they didn't just draw glass on her knuckles. Also, did you notice that the tape was supposed to go on her knuckles, but then when they would show the hands, like even the wrist would be undone? So it's like, how do you get the tape on your knuckles if it's not across the front also, right? Or at least V'd up. I mean, those of us who've actually put tape on our hands, So no, there's so much of this comic book that just didn't work. Doctor Strange doesn't sound like Doctor Strange. Not from the comic books, and certainly not from the movie. So again, I don't know which direction you're trying to go, but either direction that you'd think to go, it's failed. Doctor Strange is just, he's talking not in complete sentences. He's talking and he's not always putting the subject in there. Instead of, I did that, he's like, did that, been there, done that. That's how Tony Stark talks. That's how multiple other characters talk. That's not how Doctor Strange talks. He talks in complete sentences. He speaks proper English. So it's kind of goofy to have him not use the proper voice. It's funny. John Ridley Scott. No, seriously, John Ridley. I remember people were super excited for his Batman before it actually dropped. And then when it dropped, people wound up dropping the title because it just wasn't that good. It not only wasn't up to the expectations, the very high expectations they had for John Ridley's work, but it just failed on multiple levels. And they decided to put him on Black Panther. It didn't work. So we then skip to characters who we've never seen before. But the way that they're used in here, I've told you guys this before. Good luck finding a bigger Black Panther fan than me. Good luck finding somebody who knows more about Black Panther's history and legacy and all that stuff than yours truly. I would put my knowledge, I will gladly put my knowledge against pretty much anybody out there in regards to the Black Panther because I simply love the character. I've loved this like since he was well, he's older than I am. You know what I'm saying? But the point is, since I was old enough to read comics, Black Panther shocked me with how good he was. And a lot of it was because of his appearances in the early Captain America issue number 101, I think is when he first showed up in the Captain America comics. And he was there for a while. And Captain America privately would compliment the hell out of T'Challa. Be like, this he speaks like a leader born, while Captain America had to work for it. This guy was born into leadership. And when Captain America says something good about somebody, it's true and you believe it, I'm telling you, I sat here reading this comic book. Captain America is talking to T'Challa in this, and he's just basically saying, I need you to be the leader of the Avengers because you're the chairperson of the Avengers. I need you to act like a leader. And what with this stuff going on in space, like, oh crap, you're actually going to keep that garbage? I know there's some people who like it. Sorry, I thought it was horrible. I thought it was terrible. Absolutely the most ridiculous thing you could ever do with this character besides giving him like magical penis powers or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, it walks on its own. What? As crazy that sounds, I swear to God, it's no different than all of a sudden finding out that there's an Wakandan, which isn't Africa, but anyway, a Wakandan international empire, and now he's the emperor of that. It's stupid. That's just stupid. And that's not who the Black Panther is. The Black Panther is supposed to be street level, and you made him jackass level. It's just absolutely horrible to me. And now, also with him being the leader of the Avengers and whatnot, the stuff that happened in here does not seem like something that he'd have to quit the Avengers or relinquish his position or even take a hiatus, which is actually what happened in the comic book. It doesn't even seem like something he'd have to take a hiatus from. It just doesn't. It sounds, it's like, oh no, something happened. But again, I'd put my knowledge on Black Panther against pretty much anybody. But I sat here reading this comic book, and all of a sudden I started feeling like I don't know these characters. And clearly I should. In actuality, I didn't. They were new characters. There was no need to know who these characters were, right? But John Ridley wrote the characters as though you should have known them. So for me, it felt very accusatory, like, why do I not know who they are? And it isn't until the end of the book, like I think the fourth from last page, but I'm like, oh, they really are just made up characters. All of a sudden, all of them are made up, but you get what I'm saying, with far less imagination and creativity. These are brand new characters, but they were treated like not just they were old characters, which you need to do, but he kind of jumped the shark on this, John Ridley did, and he made me think I should have known who these characters were. Like I could have done a deep dive and then all of a sudden found out who these two knuckleheads were. Horrible writing in that regard. I'm not talking about the whole book. I'm talking about that particular regard. That was terrible. The worst thing you can do when you're writing a story is to make the reader feel like they don't know anything, or to make them feel like they know everything. And the characters themselves, namely the protagonist, doesn't. The protagonist and the reader both have to feel like they're on the exact same page. Even if you're going to make somebody else the hero, you have to make them feel like, you have to make your audience feel like they're perfectly hand in hand with the damn protagonist, the main character. And I didn't feel like that at all in this. These two people are supposed to be killed. So assassins start shooting all around them. They start blowing people's heads off. I mean, pinpoint accuracy on moving targets, right? The waiter was moving, harder than you might think to shoot somebody who's even moving that slow. But there were also stationary targets and all sorts of things. And then cars driving by that had bombs on the bottom. And then assassins who came into the alley to go after these guys. They apparently, I don't understand this. They didn't give any kind of a clue that they wanted them to get a message to T'Challa. The one guy said, we have to tell T'Challa that they know. But it wasn't made clear. So my big question, honestly, this is so frustrating to me. Why didn't they just assassinate one of these two guys? Like, there's the guy and the girl there who are talking about we're cheating. Later on, you realize that they're cheating not because they have significant others and these two are, banging, but no, rather because, hey, T'Challa said that we're not supposed to get intimate because we're supposed to be on a mission. But we're cheating and we're getting intimate with each other anyway. So we're basically cheating. But they didn't explain that until much later. Anyway, all of this nonsense that happened in here, instead, like the very last page was showing we're going to see this happen, and then we're going to see this happen, and we're also going to see this happen. And stay tuned, kiddies, so that you can find out when these things happen and see how cool it is when they happen. Well, based on this comic book, it's going to go over about as much as a fart in church. You know what I'm saying? Like, this comic book, this was horrible. The writing in this comic book, with all due respect, was absolutely terrible. Nothing of significance happens in this first issue. The best part of the comic book was showing, hey, look at new things. That's like seeing a movie trailer at the end of your movie saying that the sequel is going to be better than the movie. What would you say to that? If you paid your $8, $10, $12, $20, depends on the freaking movie theater and which, seat you want. If you walk into the movie theater and you say, I want those D-box seats, that they move and they vibrate and they heat my butt and stuff like that, and concierge service, and you're paying all this money to go sit there, or you're the cheap seats, whatever, and somebody comes along and says, okay, movie sucked, right? You're like, yeah, but part 2 is going to kick some ass. What would you say? You know what you'd say. You'd say, yeah, I'll read about it, because I'm not going to spend all this money to see part 2. You don't do that. Why didn't you make this one great? This comic book sucked. This comic book was horrible. Characters who meant nothing, who took up way too much time in this. Why is T'Challa not the freaking king anymore? I'm sorry, if we're paying all this homage to the damn movie, and the movie was good, I liked the movie. You know what I'm saying? R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. You know what I'm saying? But if T'Challa is the king in the freaking, MCU, shouldn't there still be a kingdom here? But no, they're switching everything over to a parliament. I'm sitting here reading this stuff, and I'm just like, this is unnecessary. This is absolutely unnecessary. And of course, you got to make the person who's in charge extremely unlikable, but you're also simping out T'Challa. Madam Speaker, I have yet to be recognized. And she's purposely disrespecting him. I'm going to say this again because it's important. She's purposefully disrespecting him. When at a certain point, he shows just a little bit of malcontent towards her, she says, are you insulting these proceedings and the people? I would appreciate if you showed a little bit more respect. So you want us to hate this person. Why? That's important. Why? Don't put heat on someone. Don't make us dislike a person if we're never going to see the person again. To me, the biggest bad guy in here was her. Forget about the bad guys. They were out there trying to kill these people who nobody ever heard of, but we all felt like we're supposed to. And the idea that you could have simply assassinated one of them and let the message get out, or assassinate. But if you could kill all these other people around, you could very simple take these two people out. If you want a message to get back to T'Challa, you take one of them out. And then conveniently miss 2 or 3 more shots on the other person who's going to be able to get away. That's not hard. That's not hard to do. And you don't waste all this time on nobody characters. Characters who mean nothing. Back to this chick who they made us hate. They turn around and then immediately John Ridley goes and shows that T'Challa is a jackass. Because here's this other guy who, I don't know who this freaking guy, this bald joker, shows up and it's just like, yeah, T'Challa, you could have been nicer, but, you got to pretend that they're kids and you're the compassionate adult, that even if they don't see your guidance, they've got your guidance. That's what you got to do. It's like, oh, you're such a good friend and you do all these wonderful things. And it's like, who the fuck is this jackass? We've got all these characters who have been in the Black Panther comic books forever, and you couldn't have used a single one of them? Named characters. You couldn't have used a single one of them? But John Ridley has all this love on him, like he's some kind of a great freaking writer? I have yet to see it. I liked his, what was it called? The Black Lightning, issue number 1 from the Black Label in DC Comics. Issue number 1 was good. I don't think I did a review of issue 2 and on, because when I read issue 2 and 3, they sucked. They blew big time. They were terrible. I don't see John Ridley as being any better of a writer than Ta-Nehisi Coates on the second Black Panther series. His first Black Panther series was actually pretty good. It's the second one that just simply blew. It was horrible. And this is just as bad. This first issue, it's just as bad. Black Panther, T'Challa, after showing that this leader is no good, gets talked to by this other jackass who's suddenly his best freaking friend. And then the next time we see T'Challa, for the most part, he's talking to, between talking to the whatever the hell that freaking name was. Don't be offended if I say a freaking name is weird. The freaking name was weird. And then you come over here, but I think it's also the first Wakanda name that doesn't have the little guttural stop, the apostrophe in it. You know what I'm saying? So that's something. Anyway, he goes over and he talks to Shuri. Okay, fine. Shuri doesn't have the little thing in it either. Anyway, he goes and he starts talking to Shuri, and Shuri's just basically saying, "You're a bad king. I didn't even think the Avengers would approve of what you did. It's so low what you did. Like, you're terrible. You're horrible. You're a horrible person. You're barely even human. I can't believe you're my brother." That's basically what she's saying. All of that stuff, that's essentially what she's saying. Also, I'm going to read something to you. Just in case you're sitting here saying, but I liked this part. I liked that part. I liked all of these different things and whatever, which is fine. You're allowed to like what you like, and you don't need my approval for that at all. But let me read you something that actually happened. God damn it, this is a freaking long comic book. So I prefer the actual physical comic in my hand, but I would just throw the goddamn thing out, because I'm not going to have this taking up valuable space. My boxes. T'Challa comes walking in, and he sees Shuri, and this is how it's Shuri's lab, Wakanda. This is that first panel. And they need an entire top of the first panel to do this. Shuri, we need to talk. What's up? We need to talk privately. Very privately. Really? You just used an entire upper third of this page of a comic book. It's only 22 pages long. This one's oversized, but it's only but a certain number of pages long. And you've already had really bad action in this, and not a whole lot of anything of substance, just throwaway characters who are suddenly becoming important. This other character, the chick who survived, because it's always the chick who's got to survive, because men are sacrificial, right? So, but the women, we've got to all protect the women. Just think, who had the freaking giant-sized door in the Titanic, right? so he sacrificed himself to help his girl and blah 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 all this nonsense, and she shows up and listen, anybody anybody knows this. You know this. I don't know who you are. Some of you guys, I have no idea. Some of you guys never comment, right? Some of you guys never like or dislike the video. You just show up and you're like, okay, cool, and then you move on. And I have no idea who you are, the anonymous viewer, okay? But to you, anonymous viewer, I still know that you're smart enough to know that if somebody has a traumatic thing happen to them where someone who they love is killed, and they show up next to the private investigator or their king or fucking whatever, and they say, I'm coming with you, your answer is no. And if you're stupid enough to say, okay, but stay in the car when I go to figure this stuff out, and you don't think that person's gonna come and do some shit also? Meanwhile, where's Nakia in this? Where's Wakabe? Right? Where's Okoye? Where's Ayo and Anika? Where are all of the other characters who have, throughout the comic book history, and you could even say some of the freaking movie history, where are these characters at? Death doesn't even stop characters from coming back. None of those characters are in here. I'm surprised Shuri was in this comic book. I'm surprised that Black Panther was even in 50% of this freaking comic book. There's all this stuff happening that has absolutely nothing to do with the characters who we know. It's about the plot. And John Ridley is not good enough to write this stuff. I don't care if he's offended by that. He's not good enough to be writing this character. He's just not. I don't want to see this guy give a history of Wakanda in a freaking narrative. I'm not interested in this anymore. This was a terrible book. The writing was horrible. There's practically that upper third that I just read to you, that panel, it was practically Bendis speak. It was horrible the way that this comic book was presented. And they had the freaking cojones to say, hey kids, look, here's some things that are going to happen in the future. And you know that they're going to fizzle just as bad as this first issue would have fizzled. This was a terrible first issue. This is going to be a terrible series, and John Ridley is a terrible freaking comic book writer. I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't bring up the pencils and the colors in this, the inks, and the colors in this. Fantastic. I'm going to get Federico Blee out of the way. Like, this is a guy, if he's on a comic book, you know beyond the shadow of a doubt, this comic book is going to be a banger. The art, at least. It's going to be a banger. Blee, and I've said this multiple times, so here it comes, I'm going to say it again. I don't care who the freaking artist is. Blee will make that art look 1,000 times better. At least 800 times better. All right? But on your average case, 1,000 times better. That's what this guy does. You look at something, or even that page that I showed, that upper panel, look at the backgrounds of all that stuff. It's cute to try and draw in some things. It's the colors that make this pop. It's all the little intricacies, all the little things that happen on this that make it actually pop. That is Federico Blee. Just boom! Making panels feel engaging. Cabal is a fantastic artist. I'm going to give one single complaint in here. While his characters were done great, the features of both black and white people in here both looked very authentic. They both looked very different, as they should. There was also a similarity in them. Look at Shuri's face in that panel that I'm talking about, what I'm looking at now, and look at Captain America's face after he's taken off the mask. It's a white guy and a black female. They're both doing a very similar turn face and, a little curiosity, a very similar expression, yet they are very different faces. Even if this was in black and white and you only saw the faces, you would know instantly most likely who these characters actually were, but you would guaranteed know that these were very different people and yet still be able to see it was the same artist, same style. Fantastic seeing that. If I had one complaint about the art, about Cabal's work, check it out. Look at Thor when he's turning around. He's very in. He's got the hammer. Hey, where's my hammer? He's got the hammer in and he's about to turn and whack somebody. There's a difference between this and this, right? If you see somebody like this and you take out the background, he could just be like, it's my hammer. I love this hammer. But if you see this, you know he's about to, like there's action there. Seeing Captain America. Oh, wait. I believe I've got a prop for that too. Seeing Captain America with his shield. And he goes and he, throws that shield. Actually, I don't need the shield for this. I need to not have the shield for this. After he throws that shield, and great action in the sense of seeing the motion of bing, bing, bing. Captain America hitting 3 people and still having the shield somehow redirect itself back to his hand is a staple in the Captain America comics. So I was really happy to see that. Like, that's just, it's not even a Captain America comic, but seeing that is like, boom. Juan, baby, Juan. But instead of, what we see is this. When what I wanted to see was, right? I want to see his hand whip around also, instead of him just like, I swear to God, it looked like he was tossing a Frisbee. Remember the whole vibranium Frisbee joke from Ultron and in Age of Ultron, Avengers 2? It looked like he was throwing a Frisbee as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? Like swinging for all his might, like letting this thing rip, where you actually hear, you know what I'm saying, the shield cutting through the air like a goddamn guided missile. That's what I wanted to see in this, and I didn't. It looked to me like Juan was taking, those little wooden dolls that you can do poses with. He did the poses and then did the sketch and then drew around it and then boom, 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 boom. As opposed to telling his kids, here, go throw this garbage can lid. No. Make it look like Roman Reigns doing that Superman punch on WWE. Yeah. No, he just kind of does, okay, whoop, okay, so I'll just draw that. No, that's not the way you do action. So while the book was already mostly actionless, even in the action scenes, it didn't feel like I could get into that fight. It didn't feel like something where, it'd get me like, oh shit. It's just the one scene where the no-name chick who survived jumps up and she does that very standard kick with 2 batons in her hand, right? She's doing a full side kick where her knee is, I'm wearing my, here we go. Beside my Star Wars shirt, I'm wearing my Black Panther pajama bottoms. But anyway, when she's doing that freaking, kick where her knee is up and, the side kick, the flying side kick, and her, right foot is boom, all the way out, and her hands are outstretched, and I just hit some $100 comics. Hey, be careful. Boom, and she's got the batons, straight up in her hand, like we see that with Mockingbird all the time. Boom, like that. It was still it was a pose. It was a pose with some lines to show that she was actually moving. It didn't feel like she was actually doing a jump kick. There are ways in art to really get that dynamism out. It sounds more Jurassic than anything else, but that dynamic posing out. And Juan just really did not do that in this issue. So it absolutely did not help. And let me see what else. Is there anything else in this? I think that's pretty much it. That's definitely enough. I think I've said enough. Anyway, I don't know. It is what it is. Even if the art were like, the art was fantastic in this comic book, but it would have been amazing. It would have been off the show. It would have been like, turning that needle from 10, dial it up to 11. It would have been that amazing stuff if there would have been the dynamic action in here. but there weren't enough dynamic action scenes in an already oversized comic book and in a first issue. Dorking out the main character, not having him in, more than half of the comic book, having characters that nobody's ever heard of before, and not having any characters who we have heard of before, aside from Shuri. And then making us think that we were supposed to know who these characters were. I've lost confidence in John Ridley. Like whatever, I don't know. I know a lot of people, like people who actually know, people who also do comic book reviews. Some of them who actually do good comic book reviews. I've heard so many of them say, hey, wow, he did really, John Ridley. Oh my God, I'm really surprised he's going to be doing comic books, and I love the idea that he's going to be coming and he's going to be doing some of this stuff. Okay, cool. But I read this stuff and it is subpar. It is low rate. It's like D tier at best. This isn't even C tier. This is D tier writing. If we're gonna, S tier stuff, tier rankings. This just wasn't good, flat out. I've seen better by accident. If you tell me, like, if John Ridley would say, I actually put a lot of thought into this, I'd say then you should have thought again. Honestly, you should have given it a second thought, a second opinion. You should have second guessed yourself. Like, this really was just terrible. It is what it is. Anyway, I hate the idea that we haven't had, in my observation, a good Black Panther comic book in years. Especially we're ready for the second movie to come out, right? They just finished filming, apparently. It'd be nice, but even with him being in the Avengers, I hate the way that Aaron portrayed. I hate the comic book. I hate the comic book so much I stopped reading the Avengers. I hate what Jason Aaron does in comic books. He's somebody that I see that he's going to be on a comic book. I'm like, well, I'm not going to read that. I have no interest in reading that. I can't read that because I'm just going to have bad feelings afterwards. I don't want that. Like, these are characters who I grew up with. These are characters who I love. And to see them in the hands of people who just, they're either not taking them seriously or they're simply not competent to write them competently. I'm really, really disappointed in this comic book. I've never heard anybody say, like, oh my God, Ta-Nehisi's going to kick some butt. So the first Black Panther series, when it's like, oh, wow, this is actually really good. I'd never seen this approach before. Makes me feel good after Christopher Priest was just doing the previous run, right? Yay, go Black Panther. In the second series, But this, I heard so many people say things about John Ridley being amazing, and then to come in and just see his Batman, for the most part, sucked. This sucks. The rest of his Black Lightning sucked. It's going to be one of those things where he's going to be in the comics because he's a name that people have heard of, but on the corporate level, they're not going to get it. They're just going to see, oh, well, of course the sales in #1 are going to be good. And then they've, pretty quickly dropped off, but that's pretty standard for all of our comic books. It's not because that's just the way that the market works. No, it's the way that you're working the market. You're giving us subpar stories. And in this case, in my opinion, a subpar writer. I don't know what to tell you. Of the things that I've read from John Ridley, I have not been impressed at all. Except for one book that wound up falling off and becoming horrible. This should have been a whole lot better. And I personally, especially with the movie that just came out in the MCU, how you could not accidentally make a good Black Panther story is completely beyond me. Yeah, I would buy Red Lion from DC and give the rights to right back to frickin' Christopher Priest and say, I'm only giving this to you on the condition that you come back and write Black Panther. And by all means, do pretty much whatever you want with him. Because honestly, like, I I need some good Black Panther stories, or I just don't get to read them. I'll go back and read some of the old stuff again, and that's probably what I'm going to be stuck doing. This was terrible, and I'm done with trying to tell you multiple ways of how horrible this was, so I'm just going to bounce. Guys, like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.